generations, while everyday Philadelphians struggle to stay afloat. Raise your hand if you were part of one of these press conferences. Great. Thank you. Thank you. So here we are today. This meeting is part of a strategy to build our power and build relationships with City Council to launch an agenda that will ensure this city is fully funded. That the burden of cuts will not fall on our backs, and that we can freeze costs for regular people. We'll be asking council a set of questions.
Hi, I'm Renaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal podcast. I'm at the Housing Assembly meeting where they're gathering to this. I'm at a P.O.W.E.R meeting where where P.O.W.E.R is gathering. They're gathering to talk about the housing affordability crisis in Philadelphia. We are about to go in and listen to the group as they talk. Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal podcast and YouTube channel for those of us watching on YouTube, because we're available both in audio on any stream, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and just about any podcast streaming service. And we're also available on our YouTube channel by the video platform, the Neoliberal YouTube channel. But welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal podcast. This is a quick news commentary on an event that happened yesterday, and most of you might have watched it on the YouTube channel. We have excerpts of it on the YouTube channel. We will play it right after this news commentary that I'm about to share with you. I'm going to share with you what happened at the. I'm going to share with you what happened at the meeting yesterday. The title of this news commentary is "A Packed Church, Empty Solutions: Philadelphia's Housing Crisis and the Limits of Old Thinking." Again, the title of this news commentary, and of course, when we started the podcast in 2021, we started as a news commentary, a podcast in our news commentary. We've moved beyond that because we have several series. We have the Pulse, we have What's Your Story, and of course we have the news commentary, and we also have Caribbean Thought, and of course we also discuss issues raised in my book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. But today's news commentary is entitled "A Packed Church, Empty Solutions: Philadelphia's Housing Crisis and the Limits of Old Thinking." So, yesterday, P.O.W.E.R, P-O.W.E.R, convened a Housing Affordability Assembly at Mother Bethel A.M.E. Church. P.O.W.E.R is Philadelphians organizing and working together to enrich the lives of Philadelphians, and they are one of the largest interfaith movement in the city, and they started about 10 or 15 years ago, and I happened to be part of this when it started 10, 15 years ago. I was a part of that. I'm a member of the Old First UCC Church. I signed the document to start it, and it's really an interesting opportunity for people to come together and explore solutions to making people's lives better. But yesterday, P.O.W.E.R convened a Housing Affordability Assembly at Mother Bethel A.M.E. Church, African American Episcopal Church. Now, the sanctuary was full, overflowing, really, with more than 1,000 people from across Philadelphia, representing churches, faith communities, and concerned residents gathered under one shared anxiety: a city in the grip of a housing crisis. With rising rents, shrinking housing stock, a looming reduction in federal funding as Washington signals cuts to already strained city budgets, the moment demanded boldness. Now, several elected officials were present. Isaiah Thomas attended, along with one at-large city council member, I can't remember his name, and the representative for a district council member. All were there to listen, respond, and engage. And as I said to you, at the end of this commentary, I also have attached the full 1.5, 2 hours live because we recorded it. We were there yesterday live, and I shared it on the YouTube channel. You can watch it on the live. If you go to the Neoliberal Around YouTube channel, you can go to live and you can watch the raw footage of it, or it's going to be edited right after this presentation. Coming up next is the edited version of the Housing Affordability Assembly that happened yesterday, and you will be able to you'll be able to see who was there, who wasn't there. But for those persons whose name I can't remember, you can see, you it will be mentioned in the video right after this. So, but several elected officials were present. Isaiah Thomas, who I spoke with, and I asked him to come on the show. At some point, we will do a show with him. But he was there along with one at-large city council member and a representative for a district council member. Now, all were there to listen, respond, and engage. State Senator Sharif Street was also in attendance. I spoke with him yesterday, but he was not part of the panel. He didn't sit on the panel yesterday. It would have been great to have him there. Now, and so all were present. And yet, despite the size, well, not all were present, but many people were in attendance. And yet, despite the size of the crowd and the urgency of the issue, the conference, in my estimation, offered no real solutions. What we heard instead were recycled ideas, familiar refrains, and policy comfort food that no longer nourishes a city this hungry. First, there was the call for nonprofits, particularly large institutions like the University of Pennsylvania, to do more or to pay taxes. But nonprofits are already doing a great deal. They employ a significant portion of the city's workforce, workers who pay taxes, rent, rent homes, and sustain the local economy. So, to suggest nonprofits simply do more ignores both their existing contributions and the structural limits of that sector. Second, a council member suggested taxing billionaires more. This has become a political cliche, emotionally satisfying, rhetorically popular, and practically unproductive. In reality, such policies often accelerate capital flight, or such policies often accelerate capital flight, pushing wealth and investment out of the city. At the same time, Philadelphia maintains a large social welfare population. Now, that contradiction cannot be ignored. And I'm going to say this again. They are asking billionaires, or there was the idea around developing policy that would require billionaires to pay more. Yet at the same time, we have a large section of a large section of the population, many people are on social welfare in Philadelphia. And I'm saying to you that's a contradiction that cannot be ignored. How do we justify ever higher taxes on a shrinking base while relying on redistribution without first expanding the economic pie? Now, just think about that. If anything, the city should be working with billionaires and high net worth investors, creating incentives, credits, and opportunities for them to invest more deeply in Philadelphia. Because you see, the city lacks a robust ecosystem of lucrative business investment. Outside of Comcast Xfinity, Philadelphia has very few major corporations anchoring its economy. And of course, that should concern us. Third, Philadelphia is in direct competition with Delaware, a neighboring state that offers business friendly tax structures and aggressive incentives. Businesses notice this. They notice this. Investors notice this. Capital moves accordingly. If Philadelphia wants to win, it must compete by reducing taxes, waiving fees, and offering meaningful credits to attract for-profit businesses and corporations. That is how cities grow revenue sustainably, not by squeezing the same sources harder. Finally, one of the most striking revelations was that the city reportedly has over $1 billion sitting in revenue. Why not deploy financial expertise to grow that money? If we're thinking about if we're looking for alternative funding solutions, then I'm saying to you, if the city has $1 billion, as mentioned by Isaiah Thomas yesterday, sitting in the bank, why not deploy financial expertise to grow that money? Why not invest a portion of it in high yield instruments, government bonds, and fixed annuities, or other secure investment vehicles to generate returns that can fund housing initiatives long term? Cities invest, universities invest, pension funds invest. Why shouldn't Philadelphia? I mean, that's the conversation we should be having. If you say you have $1 billion, instead, the meeting largely circled back to asking those already doing much to do even more, while calling for new policies and bills that repeat old thinking. There were there were no out of the box ideas. I'm going to get a pushback for that, but there were no out of the box ideas, no structural economic reimagining, no serious engagement with how capital is created, attracted, and sustained. Because remember, the idea is looking for alternative funding, and of course, that's the idea here. So Philadelphia does not have a housing problem alone; it has an investment problem as well. And until we are willing to confront that honestly, assemblies will remain full, speeches will remain passionate, and solutions will remain painfully absent. So the crisis deserves better. The people deserve better. And this city of grit, history, and possibility, can do better if it dares to think differently. If it dares to think differently. Of course, I'm Renaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal podcast, and I am going to share with you the actual, the actual live meeting that was held yesterday. I carried it live on the Neoliberal YouTube channel, and I'm going to have it available, and I'm going to edit it and and attach it to this particular commentary, which is coming up next. So stay tuned. Coming up next is the actual footage, so you can discern for yourself what was said, what was not said, what need to have been said. Okay, and of course, the meeting will meet in another few weeks, I believe, sometime in February, because I think what they have asked they're asking Philadelphia legislature and the councilmen and women to put together some kind of policy, and a bill that would create some kind of policy, some policy towards creating alternative funding. You will hear it at the end of this. But of course, part of that policy, again, should include not asking billionaires to pay more, but working with billionaires to invest in the city, and of course, working with and creating up an action plan that that would that would expand the money that we already have in the bank, so that we can, of course, now put it towards providing affordable housing. I'm Renaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal podcast. Visit us at theneoliberal.com, RenaldoCMcKenzie.com. Of course, we're available on any stream. You can find your stream by going to anchor.fm/theneoliberal. Stay tuned and hold your horses, or don't go anywhere. Coming up next is the amazing the assembly, the discussions we had yesterday, right here on the Neoliberal podcast.
Dollars to big corporations, while everyday Philadelphians struggle to stay afloat. part of one of these press conferences. Great. Thank you. Thank you. So here we are today. This meeting is part of a strategy to build our power and build relationships with City Council to launch an agenda that will ensure this city is fully funded. That the burden of cuts will not fall on our backs, and that we can freeze costs for regular people. We'll be asking council a set of questions.
Hi, I'm Renaldo McKenzie of the Neoliberal podcast. I'm at the Housing Assembly meeting where they're gathering to this. Well, I'm at a power meeting where I'm gathering to where power is gathering. They're gathering to talk about the housing affordability crisis in Philadelphia. We are about to go in and listen and listen to the group as they talk.
Thank you so much for those powerful remarks. I have been given the esteemed pleasure to come up here and give the code of conduct of this evening. Not that us who are grown ups in this room needs any rules. But we are here, and momentarily as we get started, we will be introducing our council people up here on stage. Now we, as their hosts, will be respectful to them.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
We will listen attentively without interruption from those not on the panel. So we do have some people up here that can check them. If we need your help, we'll let you know. We don't need you. Even though we may or may not agree with their answers. As people of faith, we will model what respect looks like in public dialogue, even when we do not agree. And again, all of us came out here to hear from our council people. So let's not interrupt so that people can hear what they came out to hear. Now I know we're going to be in time of the storm. You are the source of my strength. Oh, you are the strength of my life. Total praise to you. With everything going on in the world, sometimes we don't know what's going to happen because we have no idea what's going to happen in this world. So all we can do is look up. Because He is the source of all of our strength. No matter what religion we are today. We know that we have someone who is greater than you and I. Somebody who has our hands. We're taking it out of our control and just leaving it to the Lord. That's why we're here today. Because they say when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, He's in the midst. So I just think we're really going to make some changes today. I'm not sure what's going on now.
Over and I don't have to sing. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sean James. I'm the senior pastor of Salt and Light Church in Southwest Louisiana. tell you what joy it is to see that so many people have come out for this important issue, and so many are here for us today. We have an important conversation, and we are blessed to have at least, I see 2 council people who are here with us today. And so I'm going to ask them to come on up, if they can come up to the pulpit. I see Council Member Nick O'Rourke is with us today, and Council Member Isaiah Thomas is with us today.
We welcome Councilmember Nicholas O'Rourke and Councilmember Isaiah Thomas, and I know Councilmember Jamie Gaudier will have someone joining us shortly. But before we do, we are Philadelphia's largest faith-based organization, and so we would like to start with a word of prayer from Rabbi Lizzie Horn-Moses from Colt Center.
Holy One, Ribono Shalom, Master of the universe, breath of life, we gather today not as strangers, but as people bound together by shared concern and shared responsibility. We come from many traditions, many neighborhoods, many languages of prayer, and we come carrying the same weight, the feeling of deep injustice, the ache of watching ourselves and our neighbors and cities struggle. In Jewish tradition, when the Torah imagines a just society, it gives us a simple and radical command. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue. The rabbis ask, why say justice twice? And they answer, because justice is not only the goal, it is also the way. Justice in what we fight for, and justice in how we fight. Holy One, Adonai, we are living in a moment when power is being consolidated, when the cost of living rises faster than wages, when schools close, transit fails, and families are asked again to do more with less. Our city is full of people just like us in this room, doing everything they can, trying to make it, to survive. Our sages speak to moments like this. In Hebrew, they teach, Lo alecha hamlacha libor v'lo ata ben chorin lehibatel mimena. You are not required to finish the work, but you are not free to desist from it. We may not solve everything today, but we are not free to look away. Not from our own stories, not from the truth, not from our neighbors, not from our shared responsibility to one another. So we pray for the courage this moment demands. The courage to organize, the courage to tell the truth about what this city needs, the courage to stay at the table when it gets uncomfortable, and the courage to believe that budgets are moral documents and that cities can choose care over cruelty. May that spirit move through this room. May it move through our congregations, over our city council members, and into our streets. May it remind us that Philadelphia is not made by corporations or insiders alone, but by people who show up for one another. Yes. Holy One, Adonai, bless the work of our hands and the words of our mouths. Help us build a city where everyone can afford to live, to breathe, and to belong. And let us say, Amen.
All right, so now we're going to have a bit of a roll call, because we got some folks from all over the city representing all kinds of different faith communities, and we want to celebrate. So when you hear, just make a lot of noise anyway, but we're celebrating all of them, all right? So not just when you hear your own congregation or organization, but for all of them, because we're all in this together. All right, we ready? Mother Bethel A.M.E. Church. Newtown Parish United Methodist Church. Church. Mishkan Shalom.
Second Baptist Church of Germantown. Old First Reformed United
Yeah.
Church of Christ.
Yeah. Oh, that's me right there.
Mother Bethel A.M.E. Church. St. Vincent de Paul Catholic Parish. Mount Pisgah.
Oh, what's up, Frank? What's up, Frank?
St. Paul Lutheran
What's up, Frank?
Church. Park Street United Methodist. Holy Cross Catholic Parish. Olivet Covenant Presbyterian Church. Vision of Grace World Mission Church.
Germantown Jewish Central. Calvary United Methodist Church. Olsek Synagogue. First Unitarian Church. There's Germantown Friends Meeting.
St. Paul's Baptist Church. Holy Three Weekend. Green Street Friends Meeting. Honey Park Coalition. Congregation Rodef Shalom.
We are big, y'all. It's a lot of churches. St. Timothy Evangelical Lutheran Church. Power, Climate, Justice, and Job Team. Chestnut Hill Friends Meeting. Calvary St. Augustine Episcopal Church. Unitarian Universalist Church of Mount Airy.
Summit Presbyterian Church. Holy Cross Roman Catholic Parish. Society Hill Synagogue. Philadelphia Ethical Society. Episcopal Church of St. Martin in the Field.
And there's more. Chestnut Hill United Church. West Philadelphia Mennonite Fellowship. P.O.W.E.R Baptist Church. If there's any other congregations represented here today, you can say your name out loud.
Mount Carmel Baptist.
Hey guys, we are here at the Mother Bethel A.M.E. Church for the Affordability Assembly, Housing Affordability Assembly, and we are getting set to begin the meeting. We're introducing the various persons who are here. As soon as that begins, we will continue. with the greetings and the welcome.
Deliverance. All right. We are here. We are strong. Amen. All right. So now we're going to have our storytellers please come forward to the mic here. We will have Yolanda Jennings. Amy Isabel. Robert Balfour Austin. And Howard Forrest.
Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Jennings. I'm a member of Salt and Light Church in Southwest. I live in West. I've lived in North Philly for many years, and I work in Center City. So I see this city from every angle. And from every angle, the message is the same. Philadelphia is becoming a city where the people who work here and serve here cannot afford to live with stability.
Yes.
I work full-time in social services, serving Philadelphia residents facing housing instability, substance abuse, mental health diagnoses, and safety concerns. While I am navigating the same affordability crisis, I help others through. I rent a room in a shared house because that's what I can afford. The average room in Philly is now $800 to $1,000.
Yes.
While the average one-bedroom apartment is over $1,700 a month, with thousands of dollars required up front, 3 times that to even move in.
Yes.
That's not a barrier, it's a wall.
Yes.
Working people, including those with college degrees, are juggling 2 and 3 jobs just to stay high.
Yes.
By the city's own data, a single adult needs to make about $75,000 a year to live comfortably.
Yes.
Yet many of us earn too much to qualify for help and nowhere near enough to afford market rate rent.
Yes.
One emergency can push someone to the edge of homelessness.
Right.
I acknowledge the steps the city has taken, including the home initiative and reforms to application fees and security deposits. Those changes matter, but they do not solve the core problem. Rent is still too high. Wages do not match the cost of living.
Yes.
And new housing is being built in neighborhoods where long-time residents cannot afford what's being built. These are policy choices. The P.O.W.E.R tax structure and the removal of the 100,000 exemption have increased the burden on small businesses and community organizations, while developers continue to benefit from long-term tax evasions. Many of those developers don't live here, they don't raise families here, and aren't part of the communities absorbing the impact. So the ask is clear. We need rent stabilization tied to local wages. We need accountability when developers receive public tax breaks. Public money must mean public benefit. We need housing policies based on real Philadelphia incomes, not developer profits fueled by New York salaries moving into our housing market. Philly cannot thrive with the people who work here, serve here, and truly love this city cannot afford to live here. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for that. My name is Amy Isabel, and I'm a city. I moved to Philadelphia in 2022 to be closer to my sister and her family after many years of frequent moves for work. In my professional life, I'm a nurse practitioner working as a primary care provider and in addiction medicine. I work primarily with patients who are experiencing homelessness or housing instability. In my job, I hear stories about the pain of housing costs and the difficulties of the shelter system daily. This also directly affects how I do my job. How can I treat diabetes if someone living outside can't store their insulin in a fridge? How can I manage asthma if someone has to decide between paying their rent or buying their inhaler?
Yes.
How can I help my patient to keep their job if their psychiatric medications are only dispensed at certain hours by shelter staff? The upsetting truth is that the life expectancy of someone experiencing homelessness in this country is just 48 years old.
Jesus.
Most of my patients and many people in Philadelphia are one accident, illness, or injury away from eviction. One of my patients, whom I will call Mary, delivered packages for UPS for 20 years until she tripped and fell down the front steps of her house and broke her ankle, lost her job, leading to an eviction when she couldn't pay her rising rent. This started a downward cycle since she lost her insurance, which she got through her job, and couldn't get the cast removed, causing a terrible skin infection, which she couldn't properly treat at the shelter. Mary felt lost, and honestly, I felt lost too as her healthcare provider. This is the moral injury of my profession. How can I provide the standard of care that my patients deserve if there are such insurmountable barriers to this care? I have lived in the same apartment since I moved to Philadelphia. It's close to my family and within walking distance to my job, my church, as I don't have a car. This is my community. I feel lucky to have the connections that I was wishing for when I moved to the city, and have been so warmly welcomed by you all. However, the reality of my job, like so many others, is student debt. I am in almost $160,000 of student debt. I work full-time at a well-compensated job, but the truth is I will likely be priced out of my apartment next year as the rent increases and my student loan payment plans change. The thought of needing to uproot my life and move once again is frankly exhausting. When the P.O.W.E.R organizers asked me to speak today, I feel like I didn't have a story. The stories of my patients show the day-to-day extreme effects of poverty, racism, and the housing crisis on health and life expectancy. I carry their stories with me, and I honor them as my neighbors. But that's just it. I want to stay neighbors. I may need to leave my neighborhood too. It pains me that I may have to leave the community that I've worked so hard to join and contribute to meaningfully. This issue touches each of us in the city in some way, regardless of our background. The most vulnerable will feel it first and have felt it first, but the tide will carry us all along soon. The health of our neighbors and our communities should not be subject to the whims of rising rents, increasing housing costs, and limited social safety nets. Thank you very much.
Please forgive me, I'm dealing with nerves right now. My name is Howard Forrest. My story starts back in 2014 when I was living in West Philadelphia around the Sarah Morris Middle School and Recreation Center area. I lost my house I was supposed to inherit from my great-grandmother due to somebody illegally taking it, saying that they bought it off a sheriff's sale. I was at the nursing home visiting my mother who was dying from ALS. I come home from the nursing home to find a lock on my door, my dog dead in the doorway. Then next thing I know, somebody shows up like a couple of days later telling me he bought my house off a sheriff's sale for $7,000, but yet there was never no letter that came to the house, no nothing. A couple of friends took me in for a few years. I was couch surfing with friends and family. I went in a couple of places, but those people either passed away or I got into issues where I ended up getting arrested.
Currently now, I've been through the shelter system that didn't help me when I needed the help the most. I collect SSI. That's not enough for me to get rent. I was staying in like two different shelters. They kept telling me they was putting me in programs. They were signing me up for programs. I was in there for at least 9 months. Never heard anything back from any of the programs. Now I'm staying in like Braille Park out there. Like I've been out there all winter long so far. I've been out there in the last couple of cold blues, the last snowstorms. I've been out there just trying to survive. Like I go to different places to get free food, all that good stuff. I try to my best out here, and like this rent is hard. We got all these we got all these properties within the city of Philadelphia that's boarded up. We got all of these high-rises that got tore down. We got all these townhouses that's not around anymore. How come we don't have those for the people that need them the most?
Yes.
Like, we got people out there who are actually working, but we're not on drugs. Some of us have mental health, but yet y'all don't want to help us, but y'all help the addicts get a better spot. Y'all pay their rent for over a year. But what about those of us who are just struggling, trying to get by? How come we can't get that help?
Come on!
I gotta get the help. Instead of the ones with mental health, or the ones that are just trying to get by. Yes, I may smoke weed, but that's about it. There's no other drug besides my sister besides that. Why can't I get the help that I need, or the housing that I need so I can feel safe? Every night I gotta look over my shoulder hoping that somebody ain't coming up to steal my stuff, or might attack me in my sleep. There's been people down at the convention center that got set on fire because people just wanted to pick with the homeless, bro.
Wow.
We could use the help. We really could.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right now I'm staying in Rail Park. I can show you pictures of where I'm staying at.
Wow.
If somebody got a phone again.
Go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Robert. I go to Second Baptist Church in Germantown. I live in the Germantown Falls area. I'm 27 years old, a full-time college student, and a full-time direct service worker and family support worker in child welfare. And like so many people in the city, I live with my parents as well as my brother because none of us can afford rent on our own. After losing our family home to foreclosure this past year, sharing an apartment wasn't a choice, it was how we stayed housed. My mother is 69 with mobility issues. My father is 74 with cardiac issues. They live on fixed incomes. And in a city where everything keeps going up except wages, that is frightening to say the least. When you're already living on the edge, one unexpected bill can throw your whole household into crisis. You try to save, but every time you get ahead, something knocks you right back down. And while I'm in school trying to build a better future, it feels like a double-edged sword. Every job wants a bachelor's degree, but the debt that comes with it can follow you for decades. With the wages in my field, I honestly wonder if I'll ever see a real return on that investment. Again, I'm 27, and so many people in my age are moving back home, delaying homeownership and delaying children. Not because we're irresponsible, but because the math isn't mathing. And here's the truth. My family's struggling, but there are families struggling even harder. People doing everything right and still really holding on. People who truly cannot take one more hit. So when City Council quietly voted to start eliminating the P.O.W.E.R tax, it raised alarms. Not only because of the vote, but how it was done. Quietly, quickly, and with almost no public awareness. This decision removed one of the city's most important revenue sources, and there was no plan offered for what would replace it. And when the majority of people vote yes, and the only no comes from people who are elected to fight for working families, you have to ask, whose voice mattered the most in that room? Because it wasn't the voices of everyday Philadelphians, it was the voice of profit. Nobody wants to live paycheck to paycheck. But decisions like these are exactly what put us in that position. And to be clear, the concern isn't just that the tax was eliminated. The concern was how it was done and what comes next. If you're going to remove a major revenue source, then be transparent. Tell us about the replacement plan. Tell us how you will keep the city funded without putting a burden on people who are already stretched thin. Because working people cannot take this responsibility on. We cannot be the backup plan when corporations get relief. Rent is rising, prices are rising, wages are not. And families like mine and thousands of others are already stretched to the limit. So why choose this moment to give relief to the wealthiest instead of the people who actually need it? And here's the truth. Here's the truth. If we can find ways to invest in businesses, then we can find ways to invest in people.
Yes. Yes.
In families who keep this city running, and workers who serve the vulnerable, and young adults trying to build a future, and seniors who built this very city before us. We don't need less revenue, we need better priorities. Quietly eliminating the birth tax without a plan is not responsible, not transparent, and it does not protect the people who are struggling the most. So again, I want to ask City Council, what replaces the birth tax? How will you ensure residents don't carry the burden? How will you protect seniors like my father and my mother, students facing debt, workers who lose every dollar they try to save, and the families that I work with every day who cannot handle another blow? We deserve answers, and we deserve leadership that puts people first. We are here with our interfaith to raise awareness because decisions like this cannot happen quietly. They affect real lives. My story is not unique, and that's exactly the problem. We deserve transparency, we deserve fairness, and we deserve a city that puts its people first. Thank you.
Wow. Can we thank our storytellers for giving us such powerful, and penetrating true stories. Thank you guys for that. And in our way, can we thank our council people that are here to hear these stories, to hear what we have to say, and to handle our questions. And as we move on, I want to introduce Reverend, our dear Reverend James, who I know this area in here loves him. Reverend Sean James, who will be moderating and having discussion with our council people. Thank you, sir.
Amen. We're going to continue to move forward. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. As you can tell, the issue that we're talking about today is affecting almost all of our congregants. We're struggling with rent, mortgages, and just a way to continue to live in the city of Philadelphia. We at P.O.W.E.R are concerned that the cuts on every level, national and local, will potentially make the affordability even worse. We've been organizing our congregations for the last 2 years in order to come up with solutions to help our congregants. We're looking forward to this important conversation. Before I start, I'd like to give each of you a minute to introduce yourself. We'll start here and come this way. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Sorry for my lateness. My name is Andrew Goodman. I work as Director of Equitable Development for 3rd District Council Member Jamie Gaudier. I send her sincere regrets for not being able to make it, but I am super grateful and appreciative to be here with you all. So as Director of Equitable Development, I work on district policy in West and Southwest Philadelphia, as well as supporting the council members' work as Chair of Council's Housing Committee.
Good afternoon. Blessed Lord's Day, and happy Black History Month for all those who are observing. My name is Nicholas O'Rourke. I am a pastor of a small church up in Northeast Philadelphia, Living Water United for Christ, and I'm also a member of the Council of the City of Philadelphia. a part of the minority party as the minority whip on Philadelphia City Council. I've been in office since January of 24. This is the completion recently of my second full year, the start of my third, and I am honored to be here and talking with you all about something that's affecting so many of us. Thank you for having me.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation, first and foremost. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here on a Sunday. You truly care about your city and what direction you're going in. We're going in as a city, and that really just touches my heart. My name is Councilmember Isaiah Thomas. I'm actually a member of Triumph Baptist Church, so I didn't get to say that when everybody was giving their churches a shout out. That's my church where I'm born and raised. And I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation today. I look forward to the dialogue, and I just on a personal level, just want to thank the pastor who said the prayer. I didn't catch your name, but you know, sometimes your words and remarks hit people in ways that you don't necessarily recognize. So I just want to thank you for that, because it did hit and resonate with me. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, sir. Before we begin with questions, let me acknowledge, first of all, the presence of State Senator Sharif Street, who's with us today. Thank you for being here, Senator. We made targeted invitations to certain council people. An invitation was sent to Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson, who declined to be present, but has scheduled a follow-up meeting with us. To Council President Kenyatta Johnson was also invited, the council person in our district, Salt and Light, who declined to be present today and has continually ignored or declined our requests for meeting over the last 6 months. Now we're going to begin our questions. One of our members will each ask a question, and each of you will have 3 minutes to respond to the question. I invite those who have pre-prepared questions to come up. First will be Karen Sweets.
Excuse me, sorry. Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Sharif Sweets, and I'm a great representative of Harmony Faith. We surveyed 1,000 people in our congregations and found that 30% of them, once again, we surveyed 1,000 people in our congregations and we found that 30% of them can't afford their monthly bills. As the cost of living continues to become more and more unaffordable for working Philadelphians, our question here today for our great city council: what kind of legislation or strategies could city council employ to lower or freeze costs for struggling families?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I was sworn in the city council in 2020, right before COVID, and so this is something that I've been struggling with and been trying to figure out since I've gotten on the city council. When we hit the COVID crisis, my office put together a package of initiatives that we released to basically talk about things that the city can do to generate revenue for the city without increasing taxes for businesses and for people, as well as things that we can try to do to help stimulate the local economy. Out of that package, I was able to pass a bill called Keep It Local. The Keep It Local legislation is legislation that I passed a couple years ago, and it basically changed the trajectory for how local businesses do business with the city of Philadelphia. Before my bill was passed into law, less than 30% of the businesses who got RFP contracts with the city of Philadelphia were Philadelphia-based businesses. Since the bill has been passed into law, that number has been over 40% and is now over 50% for the last 2 years. That's the way that we have been directly responsible for taking taxpayer dollars and putting them to work for businesses and for people in the city of Philadelphia. We also recognize that during the pandemic that we had to be creative with how we give people money, because a lot of people weren't eligible for the federal stimulus dollars. So not only were we proud to be supportive of the basic income program that we put together in the last administration, we were also proud to create the Illuminate the Arts grants. And that was a grant program that we specifically created for people who could not get any federal dollars that were used to earning revenue, earning money in the arts and culture space. And so for us, we've been able to give out over 300 grants to Black and brown artists all across the city of Philadelphia who all are under a certain economic threshold. Outside of that, there's been a number of other initiatives that we've tried and hasn't necessarily worked, but I think overall, where we are as a city right now is similar to where a lot of other major cities are in the entire country. A lot of cities are really struggling post-COVID. When you look at Philadelphia on the trajectory of other cities, we've done better than other cities with things like crime. Believe it or not, it's down significantly. We've done better with homeowner protection. Philadelphia has more homeowner protections than any other major city in the entire country, to the point where as though other cities have looked to replicate what we do, but we still have other holes and other issues that we have to figure out. So I'm always looking at it through the lens of solving things through institutional solutions. I think we do a good job of trying to support people as much as we can as a city while they're poor. I don't necessarily think we do a good job of trying to pull people out of poverty. So that's one of my biggest goals, because most poor people in the city of Philadelphia, they actually do have a job, right? They're not, we're in the city of Philadelphia, while we have a large percentage of our city who lives in poverty, a large percentage of the people who do live in poverty are either children or an adult with a job. So we do have more work to do, but understand we have made some progress. So thank you for that question.
I appreciate the question as well. Upon coming into council, the first thing that folks are asking is, what are you going to prioritize? What are you going to focus on? I didn't really have a lot of know-how or really clarity about what exactly specifically to do beyond what seemed to be central to every particular issue, which is how we can measurably and materially improve the lives of every single Philadelphian every single day. First, those who are the working class and the working poor. That is the first order of business, and we decided to wrap everything that we did around that particular North Star. How do we measurably and materially improve the lives of working people every single day? In the course of 2 years, we've been able to do a few things in tandem with others, but as of this past year, actually coming out of the summertime, our team has worked to put together a cost of living task force as a part of our Affordable Philly Now initiative. If I can just speak to that for just a second. The idea is that the cost of living task force assembles about 8 or 9 experts in particular fields: groceries, transit, housing, how it affects labor, the cost of living in general, to identify exactly what is driving up the cost of living in each one of those categories and more, and then put forward actionable policy ideas. Not just lip service, actionable things that we can put into play within the last 2 years that I do have on council to help drive those costs down in every one of those categories. So we're looking forward to that report to start, I think, putting on a rough draft probably in the springtime, April, May, in that area. Concomitant with that, there are a couple of pieces of legislation that we're running with that. The Transit Access Fund that some folks may have heard of. The idea that we can take a percentage of our general fund, at 0.5% of the general fund actually, and set that aside to supercharge the Zero Fare program so that transit is free for more folks who are working in the city. That's one way. The rent refund, the idea that when people talk about the rent being high, there's language that goes along with that I won't use in the pulpit, but the rent is high. What we have found out is that the Commonwealth has known for some time that about 20% of their property taxes are passed down from landlord to tenant. That means that you as renters or tenants in the city are paying property taxes on lands you don't own. There's a reason why your rent is high. So we want to go ahead and give a refund of that, upwards to about $500 a year. It's not that much, but it'll pay for a few meals to help folks feel a little bit of relief as well as to renters. And the last piece is kind of forecasting what has happened when municipalities get into a fiscal pickle. That is creating this, what we're calling a We Own It campaign, which is to keep public utilities public. What we have learned is that when cities, thank you for that, when cities get in the bind, they look to sell off whatever can go first, and a lot of times that's utilities. Even if the utility services are not that great, if you privatize them, the services will get worse and the rates will be higher. So we want to block that from happening. These are just immediate ways that we're trying to address it. There are other things that also come out of our constituent services constituent services component of our office as well. various ideas that people speak to, things like sub-metering for your utility bills. Folks may not know, you may pay one thing to P.O.W.E.R, but then there's like a sub-metering company that tracks your usage, and that may be a higher rate than the actual rate that you pay for the bill itself. And so how can we hack that to figure out how to cut some of these costs and make it much more affordable for us to live? But those are some ideas that we're working on in our office. Thank you.
Councilman. My question is
So for Councilmember Gautier's initial time in office, some of our work in this area, I would say, is kind of divided into two categories. One, and this is the majority of where council's levers and influences are either around creating new assistance programs or increasing funding for the assistance programs that we know work. So some of Councilmember Gautier's work in this area has been helping to start the city's, actually the nation's first eviction diversion program, which is now the main clearinghouse for about $30 million worth of rental assistance money for people who are right on the edge of eviction. So that was a big thing that didn't exist prior to 2020. Another is a new real estate property tax assistance program for low-income homeowners called the Low-Income Tax Freeze. And then most recently, she helped to lead the coalition on council that fought to ensure that year one of Mayor Parker's home budget, the majority of those funds going to the people at or below the median income in the city of Philadelphia. But then the other area that's unique for district council members is around land use policy through zoning legislation, as well as decisions for what we as a city do with our public vacant land in those particular council districts. So some of our work in that area has been expanding the city's mandatory affordable housing zoning policy, which has a 20% affordable housing requirement for large new residential developments in large parts of the city, as well as trying to change the scoring rubric for applications for affordable housing for city-owned land to prioritize applications that propose to build permanently affordable housing. Though I'll say for that bill, regrettably, only 2 of 10 council districts opted into that bill. So still a lot of work to be done in that area, but this is how we start. Thank you.
Can I say something else? I'm gonna shut up. I just want to use the opportunity to seed an idea that has been around for some time, and since we're going to talk about Black History Month, I want to make sure that it doesn't die. Dr. King recognized back in the day that we needed a universal basic income. A radical redistribution of economic and political power was essential in order to bring about the sort of equity that folks were fighting for. And I think it is not crazy, considering we have about 6, 7, maybe 8 pilots already of GBI in the city, for us to propose and to support ideas around providing and increasing and making permanent universal basic or general basic income in the city of Philadelphia. If I'm not mistaken, Cook County out Chicago just baked it in for the next 2 years, I think, into their budget. So it is possible, but I do believe it requires political will, and that also will come from the supports that people from the crowd will offer. Thank you.
I agree with the councilman 100%. And I think that if we look at the pilot program that we did on COVID, we were specifically focused on women who were single, who were mothers, who were renters. And it was extremely successful. What we found was that the majority of the revenue that people got through basic income, they used to take care of basic things, bills, things for their children, things of that capacity. So I just wanted to echo that because we did have a pilot program in the past. It went really well, and I think it's something that we can look at. The hard part with basic income, similar to someone who testified earlier, I think it was the sister right here, there's always the people who are just right outside of the requirements.
Yes,
really need it and just can't fit in. So it's hard to figure out exactly how you draw the line and include as many people as you possibly can. But I agree with the councilman 100%.
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Tyson Wilson and my question is for you, Mayor. We recently saw a major amendment made to the Mayor's Home Initiative in order to prioritize those most affected by the affordability crisis led by Councilwoman Gautier. As the affordability crisis deepens, how do you anticipate City Council would will need to adapt its spending and policy to provide for those being impacted?
Thank you for the question. So, and obviously we all know this, that's why we're here, and we've heard multiple individual testimonials here this afternoon already. Housing costs are going up well more than what our incomes are going up, right? And no matter what study we read or source, they all say different versions of the same thing. I think I've seen some that say there are 200,000 Philadelphia families that are just one new bill or cost increase away from becoming homeless. Yep. And a new study out of Penn says we actually need 60,000 new genuinely affordable units to meet the current city's need, which is obviously a lot more than the goal of the home plan set for 30,000. So we know the work is just beginning, and it has to continue with this same level of energy. And I will say for City Council, Council has done a lot in the last, let's say, 3 or 4 terms to secure local controlled money for housing assistance programs. Because thanks to, sadly, federal policy and budget cuts, Philadelphia's access to genuinely affordable housing has been cut in half over the last 20 years. So we have a lot of work to do to catch up on this front. And there are some who will say that the solution is just build more units, right? We build more units, whatever the price is, that will increase the supply, meet the demand, and therefore costs will naturally go down. And that's what, maybe if you took Econ 101 in college, that's what your textbook said, but the American capitalist system is not an Econ 101 textbook, right? It doesn't operate that way. Maybe if we're talking about, I heard you say that the average 1-bedroom rent is $1,700 citywide. So if we're trying to get it from $1,700 to $1,650 or $1,600, then maybe that helps, right? But we also know that that's not what most people need. Yep. We're talking about, we need those costs to go down by half, maybe more than half. Yep. Right? Especially if we're thinking about people like seniors or those who are on fixed income. Yep. So really, the reality is that the private real estate market is never going to do that for us. And as precedent shows us. So that means the main last kind of bulwark or buck stops with the government, the city government. And the main ways we do have to do that is to either artificially set caps on housing costs, or increase the amount of assistance that we're providing to people to meet those private real estate market costs. Yes. And this council has done different versions of both, but to take a real hard look, we are going to need to do more of both for sure in the years to come.
Thank you. That question was specific to evaluate. Let me ask a quick follow-up on general basic income for Roka Thomas. Would you all say today that you support the idea of pushing forward a pilot through City Council to not just study, but to see if we cannot start to pass legislation moving ahead of it?
Right. Yeah, so I did it in my first term. I was one of the council members who looked at what was going on in Stockton, who was working closely with the administration. At that time, it was the Kennedy administration. And we were very, very supportive of it. I thought it was one of the things that we did during the pandemic that actually went well. I would 100% support it again. I think we did something well with it. And I think the hard part isn't convincing people whether or not to do it, because we find a lot of innovative ways to give people money. I think the hard part is to figure out the criteria. The criteria in the net is much harder than convincing people whether or not you should do it. So absolutely 100%.
All right.
Yes. I've been in a shorter amount of time in the building than with Thomas, but in my 2 years, this is something that we've talked about quite a bit. I've connected with a number of groups in the city about, and so yes, absolutely. And also, I do want to say, even as I lifted the idea back up in this conversation, that there are those in light of automation that are beginning to question whether or not that is even a thing that should be done. Apparently, there are corporations out there that are actually toying with the idea of giving away money as a way to not have to provide other things that otherwise folks would be expecting from employment. So I'm trying to be mindful too of the cons to something that I think has a lot of pros to it. But yes.
Good afternoon. My name is James Solomon. Last June, this question is directed to all of you. Last June, legislation was passed that will progressively decrease the business income and receipt tax over the next 13 years. The Pennsylvania Policy Center estimates this will cost the city between $2 to $3 billion over the next 10 years. Additionally, federal funding from the American Rescue Act has expired, and the federal administration has threatened further cuts to federal funding to major cities, including Philadelphia. The question is this: what alternative sources of funding could the city consider as the previous ones are no longer available and uncertain? Each of you can answer.
So I'll go first. And I'm not going to do a good job answering your question, but I want to provide some information because I don't think we need alternative funding sources right now. Let me explain why. The city's surplus right now is $1 billion, the highest it's been in the history of the city of Philadelphia, which means today, right now, in this moment, we have more money in the bank than what we've ever had since we've ever been a city. Wow. The tax cuts that were proposed and passed in last year's budget, the big numbers, the big taxes, the big cuts won't start until about 2031. The reality is that in the budget that we passed last year, you're going to end up paying more in taxes. Let me explain to you why. If you plan on buying a house this year, we increase the transfer tax, you will pay more in that process as far as the house going from one person to the other. If you plan on coming downtown anytime to see council members or to take care of your business, you'll be paying more in street market. If you're a small business owner, content creator, barbershop, beauty salon, we got rid of the $100,000 verdict system last year. So if you're a business owner, your taxes are actually going to go up. So the reality is this. I listened to somebody talk earlier, and a person said, and I wrote it down. The person said, if we could find ways to invest in businesses, we could find ways to invest in people. That was one quote. Another person said, everything is going up but wages. The reality is that Philadelphia is the only major city in the entire country where 9 of our top 10 employers are not the private sector. They're nonprofits, they're government, and government quasi. The only major corporation in the city of Philadelphia that's a top 10 employer is Comcast. The only other major corporation in the city of Philadelphia that would legit be considered a corporation is P.O.W.E.R. We're not going to talk about that because we know how they treat their workers. That's a separate conversation. So based on looking at where we are right now, when I listen to the young man saying everything is going up but wages, well, Philadelphia is the slowest job growth sector, major city in the entire country. The Philadelphia suburbs do better than any suburbs in the entire country. And let me explain to you why. If I don't own a beauty salon, a restaurant, a barbershop, or some type of business that requires foot traffic, why would I put my business in the city of Philadelphia when it's cheaper to be in Conshohocken, Plymouth Meeting, Cheltenham, Brentwood, Jersey, Delaware, and everywhere else right outside of the city of Philadelphia? If I'm a lawyer and I have a law firm, and most of my clients are in the city of Philadelphia, I'm going to the other side of City Line Avenue. See what the pandemic did was this. The pandemic showed people that they can do business from anywhere. Just like children can go to school from anywhere, people can now work from anywhere. So the roles have reversed. What cities are now doing across the country, they're trying to get businesses to come to them. They're trying to get their businesses to stay here. I got 2 minutes, I'm gonna close out with this. I have about 5 different task forces that work in my office that deal with the creative economy. Filming, music, gaming, tech, arts and culture. I have a point person for each area. Everybody desires something, but the one thing they got in common is they all pay too much in taxes. So for that young man who spoke earlier, who said costs is going up, not wages, we're not attracting no businesses to the city of Philadelphia because it costs more to do business in the city of Philadelphia than most major cities in the area. I know that's not the popular answer. I know a lot of people not going to agree with me, but at least I'm being honest with y'all.
Okay.
What?
There have been a couple of.
That means I'm gonna have to move my business from Philly.
But again, I'm a freshman, so I'm just now getting on the bandwagon. But in April of last year, I joined along with my Lady Kendra Brooks in introducing a wealth tax, and I believe that we should support that full throttle. Now let me immediately on the back end of that say, I hate the term wealth tax because who in the room doesn't want to at least be somewhat wealthy? But there are billionaires in this the second poorest big city in the country. And so at least we can come up with a billionaire tax that will help us provide our services. The city surplus is high because we can't hire for positions in the city. And the effect is the same. Our city services are suffering as a result of that. We're slow to plow your streets, as everyone can tell. We have libraries that aren't fully open. I'm getting emails all the time about this library has not been open the X amount of years, or with the money sitting somewhere, and for whatever reason it has not been released to fix certain things. So there's something to be said about that. But I think it's our priority to find funding streams to make sure that we can get those services funded and then pay our municipal workers well, which is the reason why I do think that having a billionaire tax or wealth tax of some sort will go a long way in helping to kind of backfill wherever we may have cut otherwise. Thank you for the question.
What? A billionaire tax? That is not a...
Oh, that's good.
So
It's
each
not good.
Talked a little bit about some of their kind of learning experiences on council, and I'll say one of ours came in, I think it was 2022 when the city did its, at that point, kind of first round of property reassessments in a long time, and then trying to figure out, so because it had been so long, so many assessments went up a significant amount, and those of us in District 3, actually, homeowners in District 3, had some of the steepest increases and the highest number of homeowners whose property tax assessment went up by 50% or more. So in trying to figure out how to kind of make these adjustments is where we learned that the city only has but so many ways to amend its own tax code. Most of it's set by the state. And in order to do some of the more significant initiatives that we would want it to do requires additional kind of enabling legislation from the state to make some of those things happen. So learning experience for us was learning that the tax rates for the same taxpayers and the same type of properties have to be consistent, have to be the same. So a residential property in this neighborhood is taxed at the same rate as a 2-story row house in, Concession or Mantua. The total property tax bill is not the same. The total property tax bill is different, but the rate at which they're taxed is different. And so I think this is the same. And I think this is along the lines of where we as a city need to be going, is that it's not necessarily residents versus businesses, though the reality is that because of the way our local tax system is structured, I think about 3/4 of our real estate taxes are paid for by residential property owners. So it's less about the use category and more about where, Councilman O'Rourke was talking about kind of the size of these entities and who bears that burden.
Could you consider at the end of the first year, looking at what you lost with regard to the bird tax and reporting out to the people how you made up for that each year?
Actually, 100%. I'm telling you right now, we're not going to lose, we're actually going to gain money. This year, we want to collect more revenue in bird this year than what we did last year because we got rid of the $100,000 exemption. Next year, we'll collect more than the 2 years before because a bunch of people who didn't get a $100,000 exemption is going to have to pay that plus the fine because they didn't know that they were no longer ineligible for the bird tax. So the answer is 100% yes, I got you, but I'm telling you right now, we're going to end up, you all are going to end up paying more in bird taxes this year than what you did last year, and you will for the next 2 years.
But you will continue
They have $1 billion bank.
13 years.
So this is the thing. You're going to have a new mayor, whether you want to or not, in 2030, 2031. Whoever that new mayor is, whether you like tax cuts or not, you're going to come in and you're going to get rid of all the stuff that we did because everything we did in 2026 is not going to be parallel to whatever it is that's going on in 2031. So God willing, if the Creator allows me to be here throughout the course of this journey, you have my word that I will monitor this revenue, but I can let you know right now when a new mayor comes in 2031, because if I was the mayor in 2031, I would do it.
Okay.
One of the reasons for the surplus are the large number of openings that exist in the city. Right? That's not going to exist forever. There's going to be a point where those jobs are going to be filled, hopefully. What after that happens, what would you then say is the plan to make up for the revenue? Y'all talk about some things, couple of tax options, but assuming that the number of jobs that are unfilled that are causing the surplus, that goes away. What do we do after that?
This is why I suggested the wealth tax or the billionaire tax. I know that was my suggestion. I guess the answer is still the same, because there's more than enough wealth out there, just keeping it, as basic as possible. The idea is that we need to get these folks who have this much money to release it back into the city. And so, as opposed to trying to find ways that we can split hairs and pull more from kind of working class folks, I just think we need to popularize an idea that is unpopular amongst the power brokers in the area. We need to call it for what it is. We're hearing a lot about affordability. Whatever news people you listen to or follow on social media or what have you, one of the notes that they're picking up on is that it's harder for those on the bottom rung, but it's not really impacting those up top. That the cost of living is something that's not really being felt by those who are the wealthiest in our city. So what we're seeing is an even deepening and widening wealth gap between the have-nots and the have-a-whole-lots. And so instead of pretending like we don't know that billionaires have paid lower rates as relates to the taxes but have so much more to give and contribute, why do we not just normalize and stop pretending that it's radical to say, hey, billionaires, pay for their share for your outsized influence into the But that will require all of us fighting all the time and holding us accountable too.
Let's move on to this.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Lisa Cable. I'm here from Congregation Road of Shalom, and this question is for Councilmember Thomas. We understand that the school district of Philadelphia used 40% of its reserves just to cover this year's budget deficit. As cuts deepen and as revenue sources shrink in our city, what is your recommendation on where or how to secure long-term funding for our schools?
So most of you were there when a fight happened a couple of years ago around the fair funding formula. And that court ruling and that advocacy effort is the single most important thing that happened in public education in my lifetime. And because of that organizing effort and because of that work, we have now been put in a position, and Senator Street probably can answer this better than me, where the state is legally obligated to give cities like Philadelphia record amounts of revenue every single year. So a large part of the surplus that you've seen that the school district had to spend was in part because of some of the issues as it relates to budget negotiations and Republicans holding some things up in Harrisburg. But it was also in part because of the increase in costs as it relates to operating the schools and operating the school district of Philadelphia. So for us on the city level, every year we put in more money than what we did the year before, which means every year we put in more money than what we've ever done in the history of the city of Philadelphia. And Philadelphia gets its money, the school district gets its money from several pots of different places. One place we don't get any money from is the solar tax. So a lot of people think that solar tax revenue is earmarked for the schools district. That's one place that is not. So they get some money from the federal government, they'll get money from the city, they get money from Harrisburg. They actually do get money from several different taxes, real estate taxes, use of occupancy, parking tax, that's automatically earmarked to the district. So what happens is the district sometimes get put in a position where they're facing a small deficit because of the revenue we thought we were going to collect. We essentially didn't. The surplus that we're seeing being used is, yes, to keep on the lights, but the deficit that the district anticipates is about 2 years out.
Wow.
In this year's budget, I was probably the only person on city council to fight for the increase of the real estate tax that happened now. And then not wait because the deficit is only 2 years away. When we talk about the advocacy with Harrisburg, the advocacy was primarily around facilities, which is important. The facilities plan is about $2 billion right now. That doesn't have anything to do with the anticipated deficit that's on the horizon that's specifically dealing with operating dollars. So, long story short, the answer is sitting right in front of us. The mayor already talked about increasing the percentage of real estate tax that goes to the city of Philadelphia, and I give the mayor credit because that was an idea that the mayor came with when the administration came in. We can't wait for that though. We need that to happen now. We can't wait until we're in the negative to increase the revenue. We need to do it early. We need to give Washington and his team an opportunity to understand what that revenue will consist of as it relates to what they'll get from the city of Philadelphia. and then at that point, we can go to Harrisburg and get the remaining deficit. But the solution is very simple. Increase the percent of real estate tax that's earmarked for the school district of Philadelphia. That's the solution for us in the
It's not a
city.
good solution.
It's not?
It's not a good solution for people whose real estate taxes are really.
No. Let me be clear. I didn't say increase your real estate tax. That's not what I said. I said increase the percentage of your real estate tax that's earmarked for the school district of Philadelphia. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. As of right now, you pay real estate taxes. That's what happened.
Yes.
45% of your real estate taxes come to the city. 55% go to the district. I'm saying shift those numbers. You're still paying the same 100%. I'm not suggesting that your real estate taxes go up. I'm saying the solution is already baked in. Shift the percentage of the real estate taxes that go to the city and earmark more of it for the school district so that the deficit that we anticipate in 2 years will then disappear. The answer is right there in front of us.
We don't find.
What about creating?
What impact do you see that having on schools and children?
So if we don't find new revenue and we don't change the facilities plan, you're going to be forced to close schools and lay people off. You have to do something now to avoid what's on the horizon in 2 years. I said facilities plan. I didn't say schools. I said facilities plan. So you need a plan for what you're going to do with the buildings that have mold and asbestos and all these issues, because you can't just say, well, what we did with Frankfurt High School. Half of y'all go here, half of y'all go there. We watched that. It didn't work. We see what we did with Ben Franklin and SLF. Schools cohabitated. Not saying that that's a bad idea, but the process that we used that time, a lot of us will argue was racist. So if we don't do something in this year's budget as it relates to facilities and revenue, we're going to end up closing schools irresponsibly and laying off staff. We have no choice. That's where we are.
Wow.
Good afternoon, my name is Diane Epson, I'm a member of St. John Lutheran Church. We live in a city where some largest economic engines like universities and hospital systems are nonprofits and don't have to pay major taxes. In addition, our city has used and may continue to use tax abatement policies to exempt developers from paying property tax for a period of years.
Yes, thank you.
As property taxes rise, specifically for Black and brown Philadelphians, we are concerned that any of our city wealthiest institutions and for-profit developers are carrying a much smaller tax burden than regular people. How can we ensure that corporations and large developers are actually contributing to our city's economy?
So, thank you for this question. It's a difficult question to answer because uniformity becomes a problem here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which requires everything to be kind of taxed the same. I am of the opinion, again, I'm going to keep saying millionaire tax. We're going to normalize this idea until it's no longer radical, it's just common language. We need to tax those who have plenty of money, and it's a lot fewer people than all of us. So tax them. But also, what we have always advocated for, and this has been a part of the education fight for years, has been called pilots, payments in lieu of taxes. We have been asking for the University of Pennsylvania, other places that are not these large institutions that take up a lot of land that are not paying taxes. I think they need to go ahead and pay that. I hear about the 20-year tax abatement idea, but I mean, for that to work, it's going to have to be extremely, extremely targeted for me to have that sort of a vote for something like that. But I do think at least those two things, normalizing a millionaire tax, as well as continuously advocating for pilots in our city. I think that will help at least get us some part of the way there. Other than that, part of a campaign that I think institutions like this one and others who care about, the goodwill of our city and our Commonwealth would fight to have the uniformity clause changed and overturned. I'm probably not the only one on council that would probably want to see that happen. So you would have at least two good ones here. I can't speak for Member Contier that would be happy to go to bat for that, because I think it would be a great service to our city if we could eliminate that and allow for real distribution of wealth.
Okay.
I'll add to that. I think I think a big problem we have is that a lot of the land, I think, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, but you made an important point earlier. You said that, what your number was, over 75% of real estate taxes are paid by the residents, and that is because a lot of the landowners in the city of Philadelphia are nonprofits, right? So if you were to say pilots, well, if you implement pilots, which UPenn should pay, Temple should pay, well, the problem you'll run into is that because of the uniformity clause, what the councilman talked about, it then applies to everybody. The uniformity clause is state law that basically says anything you do to someone, everyone it has to be done to everybody equally. So why does Councilman Aurora keep saying, tax rich folks, right? Because it's advocacy that's needed because, go ahead, I'm sorry. Billionaires, my bad, billionaires. Because what he's saying is this. He's saying that in Philadelphia, you technically can't tax billionaires. In Pennsylvania, you can't tax billionaires. There's no way in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that you can introduce legislation that only applies to people who have a certain economic status. You have to tax everybody.
Yes.
No, that's you. I want to tax you. You're already paying too much. But you're trying to change the uniformity clause so that we could put ourselves in a position to be able to say that the people who have the most money should put a little more skin in the game. A lot of people are watching what's going on in New York, and you're hearing that conversation. You can hear the mayor of Chicago saying similar things. It's a movement that's happening across the country where people are, especially young people, honestly, they're begging for the redistribution of wealth. That's what they're asking for. They see it. Unfortunately for us in Philadelphia, all we can do is say it and advocate. And so we're put in a position where we're limited as it relates to what we do to generate revenue, because everything I ask UPenn to do, I then got to go ask Chestnut Hill College to do. Everything I ask this major nonprofit to do, but then I actually have to ask the small church to do it too, because our churches are also nonprofits. So just remember, as we look to step into spaces where we know folks should be paying a little bit more, we got to make sure that we don't have any unintended consequences. That's our job as legislators. We're on. Don't think that we're not. But I come to events like this not to make excuses, but to make sure you understand what we're fighting for, but more importantly, what we're up against.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So I would definitely reiterate a couple points that have already come up so far. So for the majority of our time this afternoon, we're mainly talking about corporations, businesses, large developers. But the question, and I know if Councilmember Gaudier was here, she would be bringing this up as well, but anchor institutions like universities absolutely need to be part of that also. 100% for sure. And especially for anyone who knows the history of West Philadelphia, the part of West Philly that's now known as University City, you know that the universities over there have not been a kind of neutral bystander in the rapid kind of housing cost escalation that has occurred in those communities, right? They have disproportionately put their hands on the scale of how those neighborhoods have been developed, and in many cases played a very direct role in displacing thousands of Black and brown Philadelphians. So especially for that reason, above all else, universities absolutely need to pay their fair share.
Yes.
And to Councilman O'Rourke's point about the tax abatements, I would say also that there is there's a particular choice that we have. I mean, it is true that there's always going to be kind of economic competition for the almighty dollar, but we can think about how tax abatements can either be used to generate the type of community-minded development that we think that our communities actually need, and that we see the private market won't do on its own, or we don't use them at all. So those would just be the only points I would add.
Thank you so much. All right, final question, both three of you all. You can hear there's a lack of assurance of all of the different cuts that have happened and ways in which revenue in the city is down, and it seems like the local person, the local Philadelphia is dealing with the and sometimes both. The city doesn't have an endless pot of money. You all occupy legislative seats, and all of you have been very creative in different ways, and I think there's a lot
Charge University of Penn.
you all can do, but
Ridiculous.
there's also a lot that we can do.
That's not the answer.
So the question is, would you be willing to use your power and access to city council members of the commission to develop some type of report in the next month to the extent of this funding cost, these funding cuts, and their potential impact on affordability?
You said the next month? So my immediate response is, this is a fair request and absolutely will support it, the spirit of the matter. What I have learned in 2 years of being in a deliberative legislative body is you ain't gonna get no commission or report in a month, particularly a month before the budget cycle. So that's a fair request. And yes,
about a month, what would you say? What would you say is a reasonable amount?
Report. So as I was mentioning to you earlier, we have assembled the cost of living task force, which is going to produce a report. We said in 9-12 months in terms of identifying what the cost of living actually is and finding ways to drive it back down.
They have $1 billion in the bank.
Looking for a report.
What? How would they have $1 billion in the bank? Oh my God, I can't.
You think a month? Well, the senior statesman said we can do it in a month, so if that's the case, then yes, for sure.
No, but how do they have $1 billion in the bank? Huh? Come on, man.
Okay, well, yes.
We are at the affordability.
Sure. I was just trying to level set expectations in terms of time frame. But in general, if we can do it, get it done, let's get it done.
Yes, that we can do. If it's just the cuts and the impact, but not with the council member of work and what his team is doing, that's a way more in-depth study that's gonna take months. Yeah, so as long as that's not what you're asking for, what I'm hearing you, if I'm hearing you correctly, I think that's a reasonable request.
Thank you. I know you're talking.
I'll defer to Webb Thomas on that one. Sounds good. Yeah.
And final question, can you schedule a meeting in the next 2 weeks to discuss how we can partner with you all on assessing this information?
Yes. Absolutely, of course.
Do me a favor, everybody, let's put our council president.
What's up? Oh, wait. Wait, do it again. Ha. Good to see you, Rep. Yeah, man.
Do not leave. This is not over.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the P.O.W.E.R Housing Affordability Conference. We are live, and it's quite interesting. They're planning on charging. They want to charge University of Penn. That's ridiculous. They should work with the University of Penn. Okay.
We're getting real practical. What are our next steps? What's coming down the pipe?
They need to make business more, doing business in the city more affordable. If they're looking for more funding sources, it's very expensive to do business here. I have a business, and it's very expensive for me. I'm planning on going outside of Philadelphia and registering my business elsewhere. I mean, we're competing with Delaware, are we not? I mean,
how y'all doing?
This is the Neoliberal.
Come on, how y'all doing? Oh, that was a whole lot of stuff there that we just heard. I think we need to stand up, because I also know that the head can only absorb what the butt can endure. So I invite you to stand as you are here. Is my ordinance somewhere in the house?
How are you doing, Senator? I'm good. Good to see you. Renaldo. Yeah.
Woke up this morning with my mind stay on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stay on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stay on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Till I'm with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Stayed and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Stayed and praying with my mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 This little light of mine. This little light of mine. Well, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. Oh, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine. This little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. All right, give yourself a hand. Comprehensive International Multi-Faith Mass Choir. Wonderful. I'm telling you, we needed to sing something. After we heard a whole lot of stuff, you can be seated. I know some of y'all just want to have church. That's what ready to get. You heard the organ and you get the. But we heard a whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of good stuff. We had some political contextualization of the moment that we're in. We are people of faith and moral courage. We know that the moral arc of the universe is long, but that something bends towards justice when people like us show up. So, lots of folks talk. There's lots of things about public policy and legislation, and lots of granular, let's get in the weeds, and maybe some folks got their eyes glazed over. Right? And then you're like, that makes sense. You know? And so, we've been at this thing now this afternoon for a few hours. I want to invite you to, as we would say, we're multi-faith, turn to your neighbor.
Neighbor?
Neighbor, say neighbor, so turn to your neighbor. Yes. Turn to your neighbor.
Neighbor?
All right. Turn to your neighbor and consider this question as a prompt. We're going to do this for a few minutes. What did you hear in what was said, specifically in this last session? What did you hear that challenged you, that perhaps disturbed you, that left you unresolved about the folks who are on our payroll and how they make decisions? Because they are public officials. They're elected, but they're public. Their payroll comes from tax dollars.
This is where we will end. I apologize. We abruptly ended, but this is where we will end the show. Thank you so. This is where we will end the event. Thank you so much. They're still inside, but I will sign off right now. Thank you guys for watching, and I appreciate it. And they will have a follow-up event later on. What good.